Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are going deep, and I mean really deep, into a world of, well, specialized biological risk-taking.
And the source for this is, it's pretty unusual. It's a personal document called Notes on Fishkeeping, Part 158.
Exactly. So forget a formal university lab. We're zeroing in on a planned experiment that's happening in someone's home setup.
And the mission here is to try a cross-species pairing between, on one side, the notoriously feisty Zebra Cichlid,
Right?
and on the other, the already genetically complex hybrid known as the Polar, or sometimes Panda, Parrot Cichlid.
So our goal today is to really unpack that decision. Sounds simple, just put two fifths together. But the notes show it's a highly calculated gamble. We're here to guide you through the biological complexities and, frankly, the physical dangers the keeper is willingly taking on.
What's so fascinating to me is that the keeper knows it's technically feasible. They've done the research.
Yeah.
But then their own notes just meticulously list all the reasons why nature and, evolution and just raw aggression might doom this whole project before it even begins.
It's a perfect case of personal ambition meeting some very real scientific risk.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's meet the two combatants, or maybe participants in this high-stakes biological project.
Let's start with the male. He's a Zebra Cichlid, Amatitlania nigrofasciata.
And he has a bit of a backstory. He was acquired as part of a bonded pair way back around May, which is noted in Part 109 of this whole saga.
Right, and that's where the story really gets its hook. The notes have this kind of tragic start. His original female partner, she didn't survive.
Oh, wow.
But the male Zebra Cichlid, he went on to just thrive in the outdoor pond. And we're not just talking about survival here. This is like biological excellence.
Thrived, yes, but in a way that now creates the first major problem. The keeper admits being, totally taken aback by his growth. He grew significantly, is the quote, far beyond what was expected for the species.
And they even praise the aesthetic of its forms and fins. So what you have is a large, very successful, and without a doubt, a dominant male specimen.
And that success is what creates this huge power imbalance.
That's the key. When you have a male that blows past the typical adult size, you're not dealing with just any fish. You're dealing with a tank boss.
So the very thing the keeper celebrated, this robust growth, is now the main physical threat to the female.
Exactly.
Okay, now for the female. The Polar, or Panda Parrot Cichlid.
Her history, which is detailed back in Part 155, confirms she is already a complex hybrid. That's the term used in the notes.
So she's not starting with a clean genetic slate.
Not at all. The polar parrot is, it's fundamentally a manufactured fish. It's usually a cross that involves Central American cichlids, often different Amphilophus species.
And that brings its own problems, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. That hybridization introduces all sorts of known genetic variables. You often get anatomical abnormalities like reduced mobility in their spine, and this is critical for breeding fixed mouth structures that make feeding and courtship signals really difficult.
She's already a biological compromise.
A huge one.
But the timing of this whole experiment, it makes sense. The keeper had just documented a success in Part 157. They actually managed to get their polar parrots to breed with each other.
Right. And it seems like that success provided the momentum, and maybe a little bit of the hubris, to try something way bigger and much riskier.
So the stage is set. You have a large, successful, pure lineage male Zebra Cichlid.
Paired with an anatomically compromised, already super complex hybrid female.
It is the definition of a high-risk venture.
Yes, it is.
The main tension here, and the thing I keep coming back to, is why? Why try to bridge the continents?
Well, initially the keeper says their research suggests the cross is technically feasible, meaning there isn't some known absolute biological wall that stops the egg and sperm from meeting and maybe, just maybe, developing.
But that's just a tiny part of the whole picture, isn't it? If we look at the core conflict the keeper identifies, it comes right back to this fundamental geographic clash.
Precisely. This is the absolute root of the problem. The Zebra Cichlid, Amatitlania nigrofasciata, it's actually a Central American species. It's from rivers there.
Wait, I need to jump in here for clarity. The original notes, they refer to the Zebra Cichlid as belonging to an African cichlid genus and the parrot as Central American. That detail has to be addressed. It's the whole reason this is such a leap.
You are absolutely right, and that geographic divide is everything. If we stick to the keeper's note that they are bridging an African and a Central American divide, then the Zebra Cichlid in their mental model for this experiment must be representing the African lineage.
And the polar parrot is the Central American part.
Correct. The polar parrot, being a known hybrid involving Amphilophus and others, is the established Central American component. That origin difference is why this whole experiment is so incredibly fraught with danger.
So we have African genes meeting Central American genes. I mean, to put this in perspective for everyone, how far apart are we talking evolutionarily? Is this like crossing two different types of dogs?
Oh, it's far from it, not even close. This represents, what, maybe 5 to 10 million years of separate evolution, depending on the exact parents of that hybrid female?
Wow.
In cichlid terms, that amount of time is often more than enough to establish what's called reproductive isolation.
So even if the technically feasible part happens and the egg gets fertilized?
The deeper, much more insidious conflict is going to be things like behavioral isolation or just failure. Failure during development because the chromosomes don't match up.
So the keeper isn't just worried about, slightly different water preferences. They are dealing with evolutionary mechanisms that were specifically designed to keep these two groups apart.
Exactly. This geographic difference is the foundation for every single complication that they then list out. It affects everything. The genetics, the chemicals their bodies use to even recognize a mate. Everything.
Okay, so let's unpack those three major hurdles the keeper identified, because this is where the notes go from, ambition to a very real risk assessment.
The first hurdle is rooted in their environment. It's the potential issues with water requirements and compatibility. And this is a massive compromise.
It's not just a matter of, turning the heater up or down.
No. Central American cichlids, the ones in the polar parrot's heritage, they generally like softer, slightly acidic to neutral water. It mimics their big river systems or volcanic lakes.
Then on the other side?
Well, if we're going with the keeper's African model, especially if they're thinking of Rift Lake genetics, which many hobbyists do,
right,
you are looking at highly alkaline, very hard water with a really high mineral content. Trying to find some middle ground that meets the core physiological needs of fish that evolved for chemically opposite bodies of water is, well, it's incredibly stressful.
It can lead to long-term health decline, even if the fish look fine for a while.
Absolutely. You're forcing two organisms that evolved under completely different chemical rules to meet halfway. And the notes suggest that hitting that chemical sweet spot is a huge roadblock, way beyond just getting the pH right.
Right. And that difficulty is then compounded by the second, and I would say most immediate, danger. This is where it's really interesting.
This is the danger of cohabitation.
The keeper is explicitly uncertain if these two fish can even survive being in the same tank together.
And the key reason for that danger is the size difference we talked about earlier. The source flags the considerable size difference between that robust male and the smaller female.
Let's talk about the behavioral side of that.
We have to. Amatitlania nigrofasciata, the zebras, they are famous for being fiercely territorial, especially when they're trying to pair up or establish a breeding spot.
Their courtship is pretty intense, isn't it?
It involves high-intensity displays, chasing, defending a specific rock or cave.
So when you drop a massive, successful male into a tank with a smaller, anatomically limited female, you are not setting the stage for courtship.
No. You are setting the stage for a dominance battle where the smaller fish is at an extreme disadvantage.
The keeper isn't just worried about genetic failure here. They are worried about the female being physically killed.
Yes. The male is driven by instinct. He wants a partner. He wants a breeding space. He might see this smaller, maybe hesitant or poorly displaying female not as a potential mate, but as an intruder in his territory.
And her being a hybrid might make her worse at sending the right signals.
It could absolutely hinder her ability to perform the right submissive or reciprocal behaviors to signal, hey, I'm ready.
It's a physical crisis, just waiting to happen, looming over a scientific experiment. If they can't communicate properly, a process that's often violent, even within the same species, that size difference is a death sentence for her.
It almost guarantees a fatal outcome. And that brings us to the third hurdle, which is the most genetically unpredictable one of all.
Which is that the female is already a complex hybrid.
Exactly.
So this raises a big question for me. If she's already a genetic cocktail, doesn't that make the potential babies even more of a wild card? You're adding African lineage into an already unstable Central American mix.
Absolutely. You're spot on. Think of it like building blocks. A pure species has organized chromosomes, predictable gene links.
Right.
Hybrids already have mixed, maybe misaligned chromosomes. So when you try a third cross with an entirely separate continental lineage, you exponentially increase the chance of what's called hybrid breakdown.
Hybrid breakdown. What is that?
It means that even if you get babies from this first cross the F1 generation, those offspring might be sterile or they might have terrible growth, or just be really weak and infertile when they try to reproduce, in the F2 generation.
So the female's own history pretty much guarantees that any potential fry are a total genetic lottery.
With very high chances of long-term failure or severe deformities, yes.
So the keeper's looking at 3 layers of risk. There's immediate physical danger from the size difference, there's environmental compromise because of where they evolved, and there's long-term genetic instability because of the female's hybrid status.
It's an unbelievably high hurdle for an experiment that's really just driven by curiosity.
It really speaks to that drive to just push the boundaries.
It does. The keeper knows these risks, but the sheer novelty of possibly bridging African and Central American genetics, even if the babies are non-viable, seems to outweigh all the practical dangers.
So after all that, what does this all mean? We've just dissected this very specific, very localized biological experiment.
An experiment defined by the purposeful attempt to blend these distinct continental cichlid lineages.
It's a project that really acknowledges its own contradictions, doesn't it? It balances this theoretical possibility of fertilization against the certainty of all these physical and evolutionary hurdles.
And that size disparity is probably the most critical immediate threat. It demands just absolute precision and care during the pairing process.
What really stands out to me is the careful documentation. The keeper treats these notes parts 109, 155, 157, and now 158 like a running scientific log.
It's not just chucking 2 fish in a tank.
No, not at all. They are meticulously cataloging every single risk factor.
And that level of detail is what makes it so fascinating. It's the drive to test the very constraints of speciation. Despite all the known problems, the behavior, the water, the aggression, the keeper is committed to seeing how this unique experiment unfolds.
So we're left with this uncertainty. Did the male size lead to tragedy? Or did the keeper somehow manage to navigate these massive continental and physical differences to get a successful pair?
And that really leaves you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to chew on. When people, whether they're hobbyists or scientists, try to bridge millions of years of distinct evolution in a little glass box, they are intentionally challenging nature's own mechanisms for keeping species separate. So if this cross actually succeeds, does it prove that speciation is more fragile than we thought? Or does the inevitable failure of the babies, the F1 or F2 generation, just confirm that nature's limits, even when we push them artificially, remain rigidly in place? The results of this one little experiment hold a much deeper lesson about evolution itself.
A truly high-stakes deep dive into the limits of aquatic biology. We'll catch you next time.